Chapter 171. The Rules. Lin Feng had killed Kei Cheng. Maybe the reason was because Kei Cheng had underestimated Lin Feng and he was also fighting against Zhu Ning at the same time. However, Zhu Ning had witnessed Kei Cheng's death personally. It was obviously impossible for Zhu Ning to go easy on Lin Feng. He had to use his maximum strength from the beginning, which he did. Zhu Ning directly released his eagle spirit and fought at his maximum ability. Nonetheless, Lin Feng still killed Zhu Ning. Lin Feng, relying on his strength of the 5th Ling Qi layer, had suppressed Zhu Ning's body until he had become unable to escape and then killed him with a simple sword strike. That guy is so strong. He even killed Zhu Ning. How come I've never seen him before? Many people had already gathered on the 4th floor. They were whispering all sorts of comments between themselves. They had all seen how Lin Feng had killed Zhu Ning in one sword strike, which seemed completely simple. You don't know him? That's surprising. His name is the name that is currently spreading through the academy. Lin Feng. Yu Zhao looked stupefied. 16 or 17 years old. An authentic sword master. Frivolous and extremely confident. When Yu Zhao recalled all the things that were said about Lin Feng, her heart started beating faster. 5th Ling Qi layer and he could kill Kei Cheng and Zhu Ning, and I've never seen him before. That guy has to be Lin Feng. Yu Zhao was feeling a bit shocked. She had, just like Kei Cheng and Zhu Ning, broken through to the 6th Ling Qi layer, but she wasn't a match for either of them. If she had fought against Lin Feng, he would definitely kill her too. Lin Feng was holding his sword with the tip pointed at Yu Zhao, which made her tremble with fear. Her eyes revealed a terrified expression. We are not enemies. If you want my cultivation room, I will give it to you. There is no need to harm a weak girl such as myself. Yu Zhao was smiling and trying to seduce Lin Feng with her charms. He just smiled coldly. That girl could still smile and flirt even under these conditions. She was so manipulative that it was scary. Initially, there was no hatred between you and me, but a moment ago, if I had been a bit weaker, I am afraid that I would be the one lying dead on the ground right now. You say that there is no need to harm a weak girl like you? Don't you think that's ridiculous? Said Lin Feng coldly while continuing to walk towards her. Well, what do you want? Asked Yu Zhao. Cripple your cultivation, said Lin Feng, sounding detached. Even if it was a beautiful girl, she had to pay for her behavior. Crippling her own cultivation. Yu Zhao was shaking in fear. Practicing cultivation all the way to break through to the 6th Ling Qi layer had been incredibly difficult. Would he really have her cripple her own cultivation? Life would become torture. Aren't there any other solutions? Asked Yu Zhao with a flirtatious gaze. There isn't any, replied Lin Feng with absolute resolution. Yu Zhao's expression was rigid. While gnashing her teeth, she said, "Damn it." While talking, she had moved through the crowd and over to another cultivation room. She immediately punched the door, which emitted a rumbling noise. She then moved to another one and then another one. 4 rumbling sounds spread in the air. The crowd opened the way for Lin Feng. Lin Feng continued to walk. Immediately after, loud rumbling sounds emerged from the 4 cultivation rooms. 4 silhouettes appeared. On the 4th floor, there were 8 cultivation rooms. 2 were already empty, those of Kei Cheng and Zhu Ning, who had been killed. As these 4 people had come out, all the rooms on the 4th floor were empty and everyone was now standing outside. But at that moment, nobody dared to fight. For many people, the 4th floor was almost like a restricted area. Only those who had reached a certain strength could go there. Yu Zhao, what do you want? Asked a young man while frowning from inside one of the rooms. Somebody wants to kill me, said Yu Zhao. Kill you? Said the 4 silhouettes who had just come out of the rooms, sounding quite surprised. Surprisingly, someone wanted to kill such an alluring woman. Somebody wants to kill you. What does that have to do with us? Said one of them as a joke while smiling. Gong Lun, you really are heartless, said Yu Zhao while seductively smiling at the young man. She then smiled and said, Who will play with you tonight if I die? Play with me, said Gong Lun with a demonic smile on his face. A light flashed in his eyes while glancing at Yu Zhao's body, and he said, "Even when you are alive, have I ever had the chance to play with you?" Yu Zhao looked at Gong Lun with a seductive look in her eyes and said, "If you really want to play with me, just do one thing for me." "Oh," said Gong Lun with the same evil smile on his face and said, "Don't count on me to do something impossible though." "Of course, I won't. I just hope that you can help me kill him. If you can, I will let you play with me tonight," said Yu Zhao while giggling with a seductive look. The crowd's thoughts were filled with lust when they heard what she said. Yu Zhao was really a treasure to behold. "Same for you three. If you kill him, I will sleep with all of you," said Yu Zhao to the three others while pointing at Lin Feng. Gong Lun and the three others had lust burning in their eyes. That offer was very tempting. If I am not mistaken, Kai Cheng and Zhu Ning must have been killed by him. "You want us to kill him? Will it not be dangerous for us?" "It is forbidden to kill in the cultivation tower," said one of them with a wry smile while looking at Yu Zhao. "Indeed, he killed them. He has broken through to the 5th Ling Qi layer and can control sword force. He is a really strong cultivator who can fight above his own cultivation. He surprisingly dared to humiliate me. He stole my cultivation room. How should I have reacted when seeing such a thing? That's why I asked Kai Cheng and Zhu Ning to fight against him. But these two pieces of trash surprisingly fought each other, and Kai Cheng was immediately killed. Then, Zhu Ning was alone, so he ended up falling to his sword. He's broken through to the 5th Ling Qi layer and can control sword force?" Gong Lun didn't sound convinced. After all, he hadn't seen Lin Feng fight the others as he was cultivating inside a sealed room. If he was really strong enough, then he would already be on the 3rd floor. Yu Zhao knew that Gong Lun meant that Lin Feng was not strong enough to go to the 3rd floor. At that moment, Lin Feng looked at these people and said in a cold and indifferent tone, "Are you done talking shit?" Gong Lun frowned while staring at Lin Feng. "If you're done talking shit, open the way." A cold aura emerged from Lin Feng's body and he released a deadly sword chi. Gong Lun was surprised, but very quickly, a smile appeared on his face. As expected, he had only broken through to the 5th Ling Qi layer and relied on his sword force. That was barely enough to defeat ordinary cultivators of the 6th Ling Qi layer. But Zhu Ning and Kai Cheng were really trash. They had been killed by such a weakling. "Don't you think that you are a bit too arrogant?" said Gong Lun while smiling and continued. "It's a fact that you have broken through to the 5th Ling Qi layer, which is not weak, but, in our eyes, it is still not enough. If you think that because you defeated Kai Cheng and Zhu Ning, you can defeat us, well, I will tell you now, you are a fool. Zhu Ning was far from being as strong as us. Are you done talking?" said Lin Feng indifferently as if he hadn't heard what Gong Lun had just said, which surprised Gong Lun. A cold light flashed in Gong Lun's eyes. Lin Feng wasn't giving him any face. "If you're done talking, then move before I make you move." Lin Feng walked and released an even colder aura. How irresponsible. Gong Lun looked incredibly murderous and said, "Yu Zhao, remember what you just said. If you kill him, I will definitely sleep with you tonight and you will be the happiest man in the academy." Yu Zhao smiled as she spoke to the other 3 other students. "Same for you. If you kill Lin Feng, I will sleep with you." These 3 students had lustful smiles appear on their faces as they evilly looked toward Lin Feng. They started walking slowly towards Lin Feng, looking at him with pure killing intent. Lin Feng had broken through to the 5th Ling Qi layer. It was impossible for him to fight against all of them. "You don't understand the rules. Stealing other people's rooms and even killing people here. Killing is against the rules. I will kill you for violating the rules," said Gong Lun while staring at Lin Feng. "I don't understand the rules. Could it be because I decided to use a room which you wrote forbidden on, even though nobody was using it? Isn't that your own rule? When they tried to kill me, I ended up killing them in return. How do I not understand the rules? How do you decide who has broken the rules here and who has not? Said Lin Feng coldly. Strength decides, said Gong Lun while smiling coldly. Only those who are strong can make their own rules. The strong cultivators can write "forbidden" above a room, so you will not be allowed to enter. You managed to kill those 2 pieces of trash, which will not be a loss to the academy. Now you are going to die too, and the academy will again not care about losing trash. That is the rule created by the strong. I understand, said Lin Feng with an indifferent smile. He started walking and like an illusion, a sword came out of nowhere. That sword looked ordinary and did not have anything outstanding about it. There was no sharp sword force coming out of it, but in the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Gong Lun. Gong Lun smiled when he saw Lin Feng's sword being thrust towards him. A deadly energy suddenly appeared and oppressed his body. His heart suddenly started pounding. He was staring at the sword moving towards him. He tried to dodge, but before he could move, he could only look down at the pain in his chest. The smile had already completely disappeared from his face. His face only expressed pain and agony. There was just the handle of a sword sticking out of his chest. The sword had already pierced through his body. Gong Lun had been killed without being able to even fight. I liked these rules, said Lin Feng indifferently. His words resonated throughout the 4th floor. Everyone's hearts started to pound. So, these were the rules of the strong. Chapter 172. Strength as a rule. 1 sword strike, a single thrust, and Gong Lun had been killed by Lin Feng. He wasn't able to fight anymore, as a sword had been lodged deep in his chest. The crowd couldn't even understand what had happened. That sword had been too quick. Besides, no force or chi had been released with the sword. That simple and ordinary sword had been enough to take Gong Lun's life. What terrifying strength! The crowd was looking at Lin Feng's sword, which was still inside Gong Lun's corpse, as it hit the ground. He had broken through to the 6th Ling Qi layer and could easily defeat Ke Cheng and Zhu Ning. So why was he now lying dead on the floor beside them? They obviously didn't think that Lin Feng's sword attack was ordinary. That was a confrontation between 2 strong cultivators, and they knew that they couldn't understand the mysteries behind that sword strike. The 3 other students who were next to Gong Lun started shaking. They were moving backwards as they stared dumbfounded at Lin Feng. A moment before, when Gong Lun was still there, they wanted to fight against Lin Feng, but he had killed Gong Lun in a single strike. Their hearts began to fill with dread. If that sword hadn't been used against Gong Lun but against them, would have they been able to dodge it? The answer was that they would be lying dead on the floor. Gong Lun was the strongest of all of them, so if he wasn't able to withstand a single attack, they were the same. But at that moment, Lin Feng slowly turned around and looked at the 3 students. Their hearts were beating even faster. Are your rules the same as his? Lin Feng's tone was cold. They were blankly staring at Lin Feng. One of them smiled and said, "Friend, don't get angry. I mean you no harm. If you need a cultivation room, just feel free to choose one." "Friend?" questioned Lin Feng. He then said, "Don't think that I am blind and couldn't see you standing with him a moment ago ready to attack me. There is no need to be a coward now and embarrass yourself." These students were stupefied. Indeed, the way they had behaved clearly indicated that they didn't differ from Gong Lun at all. They had replied to Yu Zhao's offer with killing intent towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng wasn't blind, so he saw it all. Retreating for them would be pointless. They were trapped. "Friend, if you need purity stones, just let me know and you can use any of the rooms of the 4th floor," said another of the 3 students. Since they couldn't run, they had to try and negotiate. "First, I have enough purity stones. Second, I will use all the rooms on the 4th floor as I wish." "Is such nonsense necessary?" said Lin Feng indifferently, which made the 3 of them grow even more terrified. The last remaining one said, "Well, what do you want from us then?" "Cripple your own cultivation," said Lin Feng indifferently. The three students were astonished. A cold sweat ran down their backs. If they crippled their cultivation, they would become worthless, and they would be several times weaker than a normal person. They could be humiliated by anyone. A cultivator who had never provoked others didn't exist, and if their cultivation was crippled, that would be the end for them. The crowd was also shocked. If they crippled their own cultivation, that would be a fate much worse than death. But if they were in Lin Feng's position, then they would do the same. They had wanted to kill Lin Feng a moment before, and Lin Feng wanted to teach them a lesson. I can give you another opportunity though. If you cripple her cultivation first, then you will be exempted from crippling your own cultivation, said Lin Feng indifferently while pointing at Yu Zhao. Yu Zhao was stupefied. A moment ago, she wanted them to kill Lin Feng and had offered them her body. However, it was now Lin Feng who was asking them to cripple her cultivation. When Lin Feng finished talking, the three students looked at Yu Zhao with murderous intentions. They were also vigilant to not get attacked while doing so. I will only give you the time it takes for 10 breaths. If you don't do it by then, I will cripple your cultivations. Lin Feng just said this one sentence. At that moment, the three students instantly released their energy at the same time. They all quickly rushed towards Yu Zhao. In front of them was their lamb for slaughter, Yu Zhao. Yu Zhao was scared to death. Being attacked by the three of them, who were all much stronger than her, was terrifying. When Lin Feng had spoken, her fate was already sealed, or maybe it had already been sealed when she tried to humiliate and kill Lin Feng. A horrible shriek filled the fourth floor. Lin Feng didn't even look in the direction of the shriek and calmly said, "Take her away and remove these corpses. After that, I don't want to see any of you on the fourth floor ever again." These three students were shocked. Immediately, they took the corpses along with Yu Zhao, who did not even have the strength to stand by herself anymore, and then they left. While walking, they were still looking at Yu Zhao with a very cold look. That girl had almost cost them their cultivation. Fortunately, they hadn't rushed towards Lin Feng like Gong Lun. Otherwise, they would be dead. Her cultivation had been crippled. She was now crippled for life and could not even live a normal life anymore. This was no joke. Lin Feng ignored them as they left. He walked towards a room with "Forbidden" written on it. A smile appeared on his face. Since these are the rules, I will also follow the rules, Lin Feng said as his hand moved over the words and vigorously erased them. Immediately after, Lin Feng stretched out a single finger and a light emerged from the tip. In the blink of an eye, the word "Lin" appeared. Lin Feng then moved to the other 7 rooms and did the same. The entire 4th floor had been seized by Lin Feng. The crowd was blankly staring at Lin Feng and remained silent. That guy was extremely powerful and incredibly daring. Even if Lin Feng hadn't been there, none of these rooms would have belonged to them because only the strong could use these rooms. That was the rule. The weak cultivators had nothing to say. Lin Feng, relying on his strength of the 5th Ling Qi layer, had easily killed people at the 6th Ling Qi layer. Besides, he had made other people at the 6th Ling Qi layer obey him out of fear. How majestic! Until I erase my name from these rooms, you are not able to enter any of these rooms. They are all mine, and if anyone enters them, then the consequences will be serious, said Lin Feng, sounding extremely powerful. He then immediately went inside Gong Lun's room. A rumbling noise was heard while the door closed itself. The pure qi was emitting a bright and resplendent light as the door slowly closed itself. When they saw how bright and resplendent the light was inside, they understood that Gong Lun had put enough purity stones inside to cultivate for a long time. Lin Feng didn't need to spend anything. At least, this would be enough to last until his fight against He Mo. The pure qi on the 4th floor was extremely thick and pure. Lin Feng had the feeling that all his pores were wide open and absorbing the qi. He felt carefree and relaxed. He had the feeling that his body was hungry and thirsty for the qi. He wanted to swallow all that pure qi inside his dantian. Lin Feng was sitting cross-legged, and he was using his celestial spirit as he entered in a state of mediation. That pure qi circulated around all of Lin Feng's limbs, bones, blood vessels and muscles. They were all becoming stronger as they absorbed the pure qi. Besides, Lin Feng wasn't aware of it, but the pure qi in his body was also becoming more and more refined. While practicing cultivation, the notion of time didn't exist. Lin Feng had no idea that his name was becoming more and more popular in the Celestial Academy and that his battle against He Mo was getting nearer and nearer. Chapter 173. Vast Power. Early in the morning there were no clouds for over 1,000 miles. The Celestial Academy was bathed in sunlight. A layer of warmth covered the entire area. At that moment, many people had gathered in one of the public squares as if they were waiting for something. There was a gigantic fighting stage that had been erected in that public square. On its edge, a viewing platform had been constructed. The viewing platform was huge and made from bluestone. The height of the viewing platform reached 5 meters and its width 100 meters. On the viewing platform, more than 100 chairs had been created as well. From these chairs, it was possible to see the fighting stage perfectly. "What's going on? It looks like there's going to be a great battle," said a person who just arrived at the public square with a puzzled expression. "Could it be that you don't know what day it is today? It is the day of the fight between Lin Feng and He Mo. I wouldn't have thought that the Academy would build such an arena for the occasion though," said another person to his side. Everyone was puzzled by these events. In the Celestial Academy, challenges were very common. The people of high status in the hierarchy usually didn't care except for when prodigious students were involved. They liked to watch battles involving prodigious students. However, the scenery, at that moment, was unprecedented. "It seems like there are many things that you don't know," said another person moving towards them while smiling. He then said, "First, Lin Feng went crazy in the Bai clan's prisoner arena. Then, he killed one of the Bai clan members who was at the 7th Ling Qi layer. He then liberated some of the slaves that were inside the cage. He even made a public spectacle of the Bai clan. He slaughtered all of the Bai clan members which came to the academy to apprehend him, except a person at the Zon Qi layer. His reputation quickly rose to new heights. There is no one who does not know of his name inside the academy." Then, there is another rumor saying that Lin Feng, while wearing a silver mask, went back to the prisoner arena and killed Mu Fan of the holy courtyard of Shui Yu. He won a demonic fire lion, which he then sold it in the auction market. "What? You're saying that the mysterious person wearing a silver mask was Lin Feng?" said the two other students while looking stupefied by what they had just heard. Surprisingly, that was Lin Feng as well. How was that possible? Not many people know about that. I also know that if you compare the man in the silver mask's temperament and insane attitude, all of these things resemble things of Lin Feng. "It must be him," continued the student while looking proud of himself. When he came back, Lin Feng then went to the 4th floor of the cultivation tower, killed Zhu Ning, Kai Cheng, and Gong Lun. He scared 3 other students of the 6th Ling Qi layer so much that they escaped. He completely humiliated them. He then seized all of the 8 rooms on the 4th floor of the cultivation tower. He doesn't let anyone use the 4th floor anymore. He's brutally strong. Nowadays, at the academy, nobody is as famous as Lin Feng. There are even people who say that few students of the 6th Ling Qi layer can defeat him. They even say that He Mo cannot possibly defeat him. "How powerful," whispered the 2 other students. He had killed a strong cultivator of the 7th Ling Qi layer. He had easily killed Zhu Ning and some other students of the 6th Ling Qi layer. He was so strong that the entire 4th floor of the cultivation tower already belonged to him. Could it be the rumors were true and that He Mo, one of the top 10 students of the academy, had already been surpassed by him? The battle was definitely going to be spectacular. But why did they build all these viewing platforms? What does that have to do with the story about Lin Feng? That is a very complex question. Lin Feng is almost more popular than He Mo. There are even some people who say he is much stronger than He Mo. How could He Mo, who is one of the top 10 students of the academy, remain indifferent? Arrogant as he is, he probably wants to prove to everyone that he is stronger. Therefore, he took the initiative to make the battle a public event. This time, his clan will come. He will use this battle to gain prestige and power. Besides, the first time that Lin Feng went to the prisoner arena, not only did he provoke the Bai clan, but he also had a confrontation against a young man whose family name was Yu. That is not all. The second time that he went to the prisoner arena, he offended some students of the holy courtyard of Shui Yu. Amongst these people, there was another person whose family name was Yu. These two young men of the Yu clan will come here, as well as the members of the Bai clan and some people of the holy courtyard of Shui Yu. When that student finished talking, the two other students were astonished, and their heart was beating faster. The Bai clan, the holy courtyard of Shui Yu, He Mo's clan, people of the family Yu were all coming to watch the battle. That was going to be a magnificent battle. No wonder the Celestial Academy had built that fighting stage and viewing platform. There was even a row of seats at the level of the ground, which was probably destined for visitors of high status. They were getting more and more impatient to watch the battle. They grew so excited they could not wait any longer. The sun gradually rose higher in the sky, and the Bai clan, the people of Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu, He Mo's clan, as well as some people of the Yu clan arrived at the Celestial Academy to watch the battle of Lin Feng and He Mo. At an incredible speed, the public square of the academy was already packed with people, even though Lin Feng and He Mo hadn't even agreed on a precise time. The only sure thing was that the battle was supposed to happen on that day. At that moment, a silhouette appeared on the edge of the public square. The person was walking slowly towards the stage. That person was wearing a black robe, and his entire body was covered with a cold and evil chi. The expression on his face looked profoundly dark. Each of his steps was filled with determination. He Mo. When they saw the person approaching, the crowd started whispering all sorts of comments. The person who had just arrived was He Mo. At that moment, they only saw He Mo step onto the fighting stage. He then sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. He wasn't looking at the crowd. It was as if they were all invisible to him. Adopting such an indifferent and cold attitude was one way of making other people feel ashamed of their inferiority. That wasn't easy though, to remain indifferent while tens of thousands of people were all watching you. He Mo was one of the 10 best cultivators of the Celestial Academy and had already reached the peak of the 6th Ling Qi layer. His spirit was the rare black flame spirit. Even cultivators of the 7th Qi layer didn't dare fight against him. Only those who had already fought against He Mo could tell how terrifying his strength was. Even though he was ranked 10th, the person above him in the rankings didn't dare provoke him. He Mo was very dangerous. At that moment, far away, many silhouettes were moving towards the fighting stage. They were an extremely large group. Amongst them, there was a middle-aged man who was wearing purple clothes. Behind him were two young men. If Lin Feng had been there, he would have recognized them. One of them had been smashed into his stone chair by Lin Feng, and the other was a student of the Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu, the one that had convinced Mu Fan to go and fight against the demonic fire lion. Behind these three people was a large crowd of people. They were obviously members of the Bai clan. The middle-aged man in blue clothes who had violently criticized the Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu had also come. Yu clan. Some people in the crowd surprised. Even though they had never seen the middle-aged man before, the crowd knew that the two young men standing next to him were indubitably members of the Yu clan. The Bai clan members were all walking behind them. The Yu clan and Imperial clan were both standing at the top as the most powerful clans. No matter what, whether it be the prisoner arena or the auction market, the Yu clan always had to give their permission for the business to operate. In the Imperial City, apart from the Imperial clan, the Yu clan, and the Wan Shou men sect, nobody could compete with the Yu clan. The Yu clan was very discreet and quiet, as if they didn't care about external affairs, which gave even more power to the Yu clan. Walking on the left side, there was a group of people wearing the same clothes in which two words were written in big letters, Holy Courtyard. They belonged to the Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu. On the right side was a group of young men wearing black clothes. Each and every single one of them looked ice cold and had a cold chi emerging from their bodies. That was the Ni clan of the Imperial City. They were a very special clan. They didn't look like the Yu clan in terms of influence, but nobody dared provoke them. There wasn't a single weak cultivator that belonged to the Ni clan. While the large group of people approached the public square, a gigantic and oppressive force fell down onto the crowd, which made them gradually calm down until silence had completely invaded the atmosphere. Visitors, please accept my most sincere apologies. I wasn't able to come pick you up. A voice emerged through the air. Immediately after, a silhouette came down from the sky. Using an agility technique, his silhouette disappeared and landed in front of the Yu clan and the other visitors. The man in purple clothes frowned and looked at Vice Principal Long. He was upset. Vice Principal Long, how imposing, how arrogant, said the young man in purple clothes indifferently. Obviously, he was referring to the fact that Vice Principal Long hadn't been very polite while descending from the sky. Mr. Yu's prestige is vast and mighty. He can act just as arrogant as me. Vice Principal Long was fighting with a small verbal confrontation. Immediately after, he pointed towards the viewing platform and said, "Please take your seats and let's watch the battle." The man in purple clothes groaned coldly and walked towards the viewing platform. Chapter 174. Beginning of the battle. The man in purple clothes walked towards the main seat, thinking that it was definitely reserved for him. The Yu clan had a strong influence. Even though Vice Principal Long wasn't polite to them, he had to give them the main seat, otherwise he would make them lose face. But at the moment when they were about to sit down, they heard Vice Principal Long say, "Mr. Yu, you cannot take that seat." "I cannot take it?" The man in purple frowned. He looked in the direction of Vice Principal Long and said, "Long Ding, if I cannot sit here, who will? I can only tell you that that seat is reserved. Whether you still want to sit there or not is your own choice," said Long Ding impolitely to the man in purple while pulling up his sleeves. Immediately after, he sat down on the seat next to the main one. The man in purple clothes was hesitant. If Long Ding had sat down on the main seat, he would have been extremely angry, but Long Ding hadn't. He had sat down on the seat next to the main one. That made the man in purple hesitant. Could it be that someone extremely important was going to come to the extent that Long Ding himself couldn't take the main seat? Could it be because of him? A realization flashed in the man's mind and a silhouette appeared in his thoughts. He surprisingly didn't insist, groaned coldly and sat down on the other seat next to the main seat. The members of the Celestial Academy calmly watched the scene from the viewing platform. They were wondering what was going on. It seemed like Vice Principal Long and the Yu clan were not on good terms. They were not friendly to each other and their conversation always sounded like an argument. It almost seemed like they hated each other. The members of the Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu as well as the Ni clan members were not sitting separately from the others. The crowd didn't know if it meant something or not. The members of the Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu sat down next to Long Ding and the other members of the Celestial Academy. Vice Principal Long, I heard that the Celestial Academy had 10 extremely strong disciples. As the Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu is now created, I was thinking that there could be a competition between the two institutions. What do you think? In the middle of the crowd, belonging to the Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu, the person took the initiative to ask a question which surprised many people belonging to the Celestial Academy. The Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu had been created by selecting some of the most outstanding disciples of the biggest sects. Even 2 of the 8 high officials, who were incomparably strong, had joined it. Even though the students of the Celestial Academy were extremely strong, how could they compete with the best disciples of the biggest sects? The Hao Yu sect. the Yun Hai sect, the Wan Shou Men sect and the Ice and Snow Mountain Village were all very influential in the Shui Yu country. They had made some of their students achieve extremely high levels of cultivation, and the strongest of them had moved to the holy courtyard of Shui Yu. The holy courtyard of Shui Yu was indubitably extremely powerful. If the Celestial Academy fought against them, they would definitely lose. My Celestial Academy is too weak. We still need to improve a lot to be able to compete with the holy courtyard of Shui Yu. We try to become stronger step by step, but you selected the best students from the best sects and put them in one place. There is no need for such a competition. We are much weaker. Long Ding said these words while sounding like he was making fun of the holy courtyard. The Celestial Academy was too weak, but it was improving step by step and relied on its own strength. The holy courtyard of Shui Yu had been extremely strong directly from the beginning, but it had taken its strength from other sects. That wasn't a good method. When the other person heard Long Ding, he immediately stopped talking. At that moment, the crowd looked at the fighting stage. Hei Mo was still sitting there, remaining silent and motionless. Only one person hadn't arrived yet. Lin Feng. Time was passing and the sun was gradually getting hotter. It was already noon. What upset everybody was that Lin Feng surprisingly hadn't arrived yet. Long Ding, your student is very audacious, making so many people wait. Coldly said the man in purple clothes as he grew impatient. Why had he made so many people come to wait for a child? Lin Feng and Hei Mo's battle is planned for today. They haven't agreed on a precise time, replied Long Ding indifferently. Today? So many people came today to watch that battle. Even everybody in the Celestial Academy knows about it and he's still not coming. What's that supposed to mean? Well, how do you expect me to know? When Lin Feng arrives, you can ask him personally, said Long Ding, sounding as unfriendly as before. The man in purple clothes wasn't the only one who was getting impatient. The members of the Celestial Academy were also getting impatient. They were unceasingly whispering, Lin Feng is really arrogant. He's surprisingly not coming. Maybe that he cannot fight, because he's not ready for the battle, said someone while smiling indifferently. Impossible. Even if he doesn't fight, Hei Mo will not let him off. Whatever happens, Lin Feng will not be able to hide, so this battle would be the best solution. Maybe he already ran away. Who knows? People in the crowd were all trying to guess what had happened with Lin Feng. No matter if they were right or not, only they could choose whether they wanted to stay and wait or leave. Unexpectedly, Hei Mo was still sitting there as if nothing could disturb him. The evening sun, floating in the west, had already appeared and was shining down upon the fighting stage, on which there was still only one person. How exaggerated! He had made them wait whole day. The crowd was getting more and more impatient. Besides, they were starting to get convinced that Lin Feng was scared and didn't dare come. Long Ding, will you not do anything about it? Said the man in purple clothes a little coldly. Lin Feng had made them wait the entire day. The day is not over yet, calmly said Long Ding while looking at the sky. On his side, the members of the holy courtyard of Shui Yu looked impatient as well. How could a simple student of the Celestial Academy be so arrogant that he would make them wait so long? Lin Qian, you said that Lin Feng was your cousin, asked a handsome man to Lin Qian who was in the middle of the crowd. Maybe it's not him, said Lin Qian while frowning. On that day at the prisoner arena, Lin Feng was wearing a silver mask, so Lin Qian still had doubts. She had, since then, heard that the man who was wearing the mask was called Lin Feng. She had been stupefied upon hearing the news. Therefore, she had come to the Celestial Academy to confirm with her own eyes. Even if it is, there is absolutely no problem. He is just a little kid of the 5th Ling Qi layer, nothing more. If I want him to die, he will die. If I want him to live, he will live, said the handsome boy in a cold and aggressive way. Lin Qian slightly smiled to the handsome man and said, "Thank you, Chu Zanpeng." That man was precisely Chu Zanpeng, the genius of the Hao Yu sect. He was one of the 8 high officials of the Shui Yu country. At that moment, though, he had joined the holy courtyard of Shui Yu. At that moment, the crowd became extremely loud. The crowd moved aside, and a path appeared. On that path, a silhouette was walking slowly. It's Lin Feng. Lin Feng has arrived. Many people were surprised. They were really starting to think that Lin Feng didn't dare to come. They wouldn't have thought that Lin Feng would arrive so late in the evening. At that moment, Lin Feng was wearing a white robe. He had a sword on his back. He looked clean and calm. Each of his steps was filled with determination. If one paid attention to his steps, one would notice that each of his steps was of the exact same distance as the one before. On the 5-meter-high viewing platform, everybody could clearly see Lin Feng's silhouette. They could see that clean, handsome and familiar face. Lin Qian's heart was pounding. She was shaking from head to toe as she stared at the person. Lin Feng, as expected, it really was Lin Feng. That was really him. Lin Feng used to be a piece of trash. However, at that moment, he had already acquired a great reputation, so many people had come to watch his battle. The holy courtyard of Shui Yu, the Mie clan and even the Yu clan had all personally come to watch his fight. Lin Qian used to enjoy the same kind of prestige before inside the Lin clan. Everybody attached so much importance to her that they had even expelled Lin Feng and his father from the Lin clan. Although she wasn't very famous, she had become a student of the holy courtyard of Shui Yu, but Lin Feng was already able to defeat cultivators of the 6th Ling Qi layer. Unlike her, who had only just broken through to the 3rd Ling Qi layer and was even very pleased with herself for doing that. Lin Qian's eyes revealed a complex mixture of expressions containing envy, jealousy and coldness. She had to kill Lin Feng. She couldn't let him go back to Yangzhou City. Otherwise, in the future, the Lin clan wouldn't have her as head of clan, but instead it would be Lin Feng. He Mo opened his eyes as if he had sensed someone coming. A piercingly cold qi and force emerged from his body. He was staring straight at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was looking at He Mo with the same cold glare. He was walking steadily towards the fighting stage. A cold and oppressive energy fell onto his body. Even though He Mo was still far away from him, Lin Feng could already feel the oppressive energy on his body. Following suit, Lin Feng released both qi and force from his body. It was extremely sharp. His qi and force were already rushing straight towards He Mo. Even though Lin Feng was still far from He Mo could already feel the sharp energy piercing him into his skin. Lin Feng hadn't even arrived on the fighting stage yet and they were already fighting a battle of qi. Chapter 175. Your Highness. Sword Force. When the crowd sensed Lin Feng's sharp force, they were stupefied. As the rumor said, Lin Feng could control sword force and was even a master at using it. Following each of Lin Feng's steps, the force was getting more and more powerful. The entire atmosphere was filled with sword force. Under the pressure from his sword force, people around him began retreating. At the moment when Lin Feng was on the fighting stage, an incredibly swift and fierce sword force whistled through the air towards He Mo. One thing was sure, Lin Feng had come. Therefore, he and his sword were going to provide the spectators with a spectacular battle. He Mo had already stood up. A gloomy and cold qi was emerging from his body. That whistling sword force from Lin Feng was unable to make his heart tremble even slightly. In He Mo's eyes, there were deep burning flames. At that moment, he wanted to use Lin Feng's blood to become famous. The crowd was fixedly staring at the fighting stage. Even though Lin Feng had shown up quite late on this day, his incredible sword force had already made them forget about their dissatisfaction. This battle was definitely worth waiting an entire day for. How audacious! At that moment, the man in purple, while looking at the fighting stage, said, "Lin Feng, you are very arrogant. You made us all wait an entire day and won't even give us an explanation." His voice was very loud and intense. It violently resonated in Lin Feng's ears. He was blaming Lin Feng for making him wait. Lin Feng groaned. The energy around his body dispersed and he took 2 steps back. A moment before, he had spared no effort, using force and chi to be able to compete with Hei Mo. He had been concentrating on Hei Mo only. He hadn't thought that the man in purple would suddenly make a despicable comment and very loudly interrupt him. At the same time, when his focus was broken, Hei Mo's energy slightly penetrated into Lin Feng's body, which injured him a little bit. The crowd was stupefied and looked at the man in purple. How aggressive! That was an initial show of strength. Long Ding frowned. His eyes revealed that he was upset. At that moment, Lin Feng, from the corner of his eyes, slightly looked at the man in purple clothes and the 2 young people sitting on his side. He quickly understood what was going on. He then coldly said, "Haven't I humiliated those 2 sitting by your side? If you want to avenge them, just say it clearly. There is no need to use such despicable methods. You really are shameless. I really don't understand what even gives you the right to sit there. You're just making a fool of yourself." When Lin Feng finished talking, the crowd was astonished. Lin Feng was really audacious. He was straightforward and his words were sharp and poignant. He even dared to talk in such an impolite way to members of the Yu clan, humiliating and insulting them. The pupils of the man in purple clothes shrank. He had thought that he would teach Lin Feng a lesson and that Lin Feng was just going to recognize he had made a mistake and apologize. He had thought that Lin Feng wouldn't dare refute his words. It seemed like his anticipation had been wrong. Lin Feng was much more aggressive than he had imagined. "What did you just say?" said the man in purple clothes with a cold expression in his eyes. He was an extremely important man in the Yu clan to the extent that even Long Ding somehow feared him and a junior actually dared insult and humiliate him. "You say that I am audacious and that I made you wait the entire day and, on top of that, that I should give you an explanation. My battle against Hei Mo was planned for today, but we hadn't agreed on a precise time. Therefore, even though I came in the evening, it doesn't mean that I was late. I would like to ask you something though. Did I, Lin Feng, invite you to come?" Lin Feng was speaking coldly and continued, "Whether I fight or not is my own business, and whether you want to watch or not is your own business. You rushed over here to watch, yet you ask me for explanations. Why would I need to justify myself to you? Do I know you?" Lin Feng's words were so sharp that the man in purple clothes was really astonished. Lin Feng didn't stop talking and continued, "A senior, watching a battle, suddenly puts pressure on me. Don't you think that your behavior is that of a shameless person? Are you not losing face with your actions? I don't know which clan you belong to, but you are a disgrace for them. If I were you, I would be very embarrassed to be sitting in view of everyone." The crowd was utterly astonished. They were looking at the man in purple clothes in a strange way. It seemed like Lin Feng's statements were actually very accurate. Lin Feng hadn't agreed on a precise time and hadn't invited anybody to watch the battle. Coming to watch the battle was their own decision and had nothing to do with Lin Feng. That senior of the Yu clan was surprisingly blaming Lin Feng, which was quite inappropriate. The crowd agreed with Lin Feng, but nobody dared act like Lin Feng and say these things out loud in such a majestic way. The man in purple clothes had an ugly expression on his face, and then Vice Principal Long, who was sitting not far from him, said while slightly laughing, "That kind of method is really low. The third most important man of the Yu clan is really majestic and powerful." Majestic and powerful. He had already heard so many words of insult. The man in purple clothes wanted to teach Lin Feng a lesson. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng would endlessly humiliate him in one sentence. Crack. The stone seat on which the man in purple clothes was sitting on cracked open. There was a deep fissure, but it hadn't broken into pieces. He was staring at Lin Feng, wishing he could kill him on the spot. Majestic and powerful indeed. I am really majestic and powerful. Lin Feng, if you lose today, Hei Mo will definitely kill you. And if you win, I will not let you off. No matter if you win or lose, today, you are doomed. There was clear killing intent filling the eyes of the man in purple clothes. His voice was loud and aggressive. Everybody was stupefied. I am majestic and powerful. I am an extremely strong senior. I always get what I want. No matter the result of the battle, loss or victory, Lin Feng would die for having dared to provoke him. That was how majestic important senior members of the Yu clan were. Yu Chu, it seems like you think that the Celestial Academy is your Yu clan. Here, you cannot do anything you wish, said Long Ding coldly. Immediately after, he turned towards Lin Feng and said, Lin Feng, you and He Mo fight. Don't worry. Even though I cannot kill him, if Yu Chu dares attack you, I can still kill the junior cultivators who came with him. What are you saying? Said Yu Chu coldly. He stared at Long Ding and said, Vice Principal Long, you are threatening the juniors of the Yu clan? How shameless. When the crowd heard Yu Chu, they were astonished. It was indeed majestic to be extremely powerful, but they hadn't thought that he could be so shameless. Long Ding was also astonished. He immediately said in a mocking tone, You threaten the juniors of the Celestial Academy but don't allow me to threaten the juniors of the Yu clan? Yu Chu, is your brain working correctly? Groaned Yu Chu, and then he said, Are you not scared of making the Yu clan angry? You are within the Celestial Academy, said Long Ding coldly while striving to get the last word. So what? I don't care if this is the Celestial Academy. Humiliating the Yu clan will lead to the destruction of the Celestial Academy, said Yu Chu while sounding evil. The crowd was astonished. They had originally come to watch Lin Feng and He Mo's battle. They hadn't thought that they would witness Yu Chu and Long Ding's confrontation, all because of Lin Feng. The crowd was very surprised by the turn of events. Besides, the entire crowd had become silent and was looking at Long Ding. Yu Chu had threatened to annihilate the Celestial Academy. All of its members had become silent. Everybody was absolutely silent. Mr. Yu, you have a very bad temper. A voice emerged amongst the silent crowd. A silhouette walked in the middle of the crowd. That person had a warm and friendly smile on their face and looked very easygoing. Many people were astonished when they saw that person. Even Yu Chu was shaking a little. As expected, the main seat had been reserved for him. When Lin Feng saw that young man, he was astonished as well. He had already seen him. He had accepted to be the referee for Lin Feng's battle at the prisoner arena. As expected, he definitely has a mysterious status. Lin Feng had also noticed the main seat, which was unoccupied. It was very likely that that seat was reserved for that young man. He even seemed to have a higher status than the man of the Yu clan. When Long Ding saw the young man, he smiled and stood up. Your Highness, said Long Ding extremely politely. Yu Chu stood up as well. A smile appeared on his face and he said, Your Highness must be joking. I don't have a bad temper. If you don't, that's even better. Mr. Yu, Vice Principal Long, please sit down. No need to be so polite. That smiling young man was extremely polite and didn't sound arrogant at all for a prince. He had already arrived next to the main seat. At that moment, in the middle of the members of the holy courtyard of Shui Yu, Chu Zanpeng had an aggressive look in his eyes. He was staring at the young man. The young man turned his head and looked at Chu Zanpeng. He nodded while smiling and said, Chu Zanpeng, as expected, always exceptional. I salute, Your Highness. Chu Zanpeng nodded and greeted the young man. His aggressive look gradually vanished. The second prince Duan Wu Ya was, just like him, one of the 8 high officials, and he was above him in the rankings. Chapter 176, Black Lotus. Lin Feng looked at Duan Wu Ya. Duan Wu Ya was the second prince of the imperial city. He had a soft and gentle temperament. He was kind and generous to other people. He wasn't arrogant at all. He was easygoing and approachable. If people were nervous and tense, his presence immediately made people calm down. Duan Wu Ya was just like Duan Feng described him. He was completely different from Duan Wu Dao, the crown prince. Lin Feng didn't actually know how unruly the crown prince was though. That guy is powerful. Lin Feng was talking to himself. Duan Wu Ya was an extremely important person and he was also very strong, but at the same time, he was also amiable and approachable. He was incredibly powerful and prestigious. Duan Wu Ya looked at the fighting stage, smiled and said, "All right, you two can continue to fight. I will be the referee." Lin Feng slightly nodded to Duan Wu Ya. The second prince had also already helped Lin Feng. Last time, he had also acted as the referee for his battle at the prisoner arena. Lin Feng turned around and looked at He Mo. He Mo had had his eyes closed. What just happened had nothing to do with him. His only purpose, at that moment, was to kill Lin Feng and gain prestige. He wanted to prove to everyone that not just anyone could challenge him to a battle. At that moment, He Mo opened his eyes. A cold and profound light filled his eyes. Once more, Lin Feng saw the black flames burning in He Mo's eyes. Lin Feng started releasing a very sharp sword force. He Mo was one of the top 10 disciples of the Celestial Academy. Lin Feng couldn't afford being careless. You have broken through to the 5th Ling Qi layer and your sword force is very powerful. No wonder that you can kill cultivators at the 6th Ling Qi layer, but if that's all you are capable of, it will not be enough to fight against me. Zhu Ning, Gong Lun and the others, even though they had broken through to the 6th Ling Qi layer, they were absolutely unable to compete with me," said He Mo very arrogantly while staring at Lin Feng. "I also hope that you are as strong as you say," replied Lin Feng coldly. He took a single step forwards and his sword force became even more powerful. "All right, I will try and see if you really can compete with a truly strong cultivator like me." When He Mo finished talking, he took a few steps as his silhouette flickered and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Lin Feng and his fist was rushing through the air towards Lin Feng. Ice and sword. Lin Feng's palm moved. He was accumulated piercingly cold energy as well as sword energy in his hand at the same time. Boom! Lin Feng was surprised. His body had been pushed back of a few dozen steps. He had almost reached the edge of the fighting stage. Lin Feng looked perplexed. He opened his hand and looked at his palm. In the center of his palm, there was a black mark caused by fire qi. It was extremely painful. What a dark fire qi, thought Lin Feng while shivering. When the opponent's fist collided with the palm of his hand, Lin Feng had clearly felt the overwhelming fire qi. It was completely evil. It wasn't violent or brutal but rather a ghastly fire qi. As expected, He Mo is much stronger than Lin Feng. Lin Feng was blown away in one attack, thought the crowd when they saw that attack. He Mo wasn't one of the 10 best cultivators of the Celestial Academy for nothing. Lin Feng was sufficiently strong to kill other cultivators of the 6th Ling Qi layer, but in front of He Mo, he was just too weak. "It seems like you cannot compete with me. You cannot even withstand a single attack. Today, you will definitely die," said He Mo in an arrogant tone. "You have broken through to the 6th Ling Qi layer. I am only at the 5th Ling Qi layer. Of course, the strength behind your punches would be stronger. However, you are an expert at using fire, but I am an expert at using swords." Lin Feng completely forgot about the attack of a moment before as if it didn't matter. He reached to his back and grabbed his long sword. At that moment, his energy became increasingly more powerful. That's right, Lin Feng is an expert at using swords. His cultivation level is weaker than that of He Mo. If he fights recklessly, it can get very dangerous for him. The crowd was getting impatient again. Even though they thought that He Mo was stronger, Lin Feng still couldn't be that weak. Otherwise, this battle would have been pointless to watch. "Come here," said He Mo indifferently while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng walked forwards again. Lin Feng's sword energy, which filled the atmosphere, suddenly enveloped He Mo's body. He Mo frowned. Suddenly, a pain invaded his body, and he was being cut by the intense sword energy which surrounded his body. Lin Feng wasn't rushing. He was slowly walking forwards. After each of his steps, his sword force was getting more intense and increasingly sharper. He Mo smiled coldly. He raised his fist and launched an extremely powerful punch towards Lin Feng. Deadly sword. Lin Feng's sword fluttered in the air. His sword pierced the atmosphere while emitting a whistling noise. The sword energy was concentrated on the tip of his sword and rushed straight towards He Mo. Extermination! Shouted He Mo. A black chi emerged from his fist and started to consume the sword energy. At the same time, it collided with Lin Feng's sword. The fireball crashed into Lin Feng's sword and the black flames were extinguished. Lin Feng's expression didn't change. Lin Feng released an extremely cold chi from his body. When the black flames collided with his palm, it left him with a small injury. However, this time when using his sword, Lin Feng seemed unperturbed. Flame attack. He Mo launched his fist forward with a new attack. Two black flames moved straight towards Lin Feng. Fatal sword. Lin Feng thrust his sword forward. His sword chi was even more intense and contained a deadly chi. Lin Feng's sword energy and the black flames were both tearing through the air as they collided. The deadly chi of Lin Feng's sword invaded the entire atmosphere and it even made He Mo take a step backwards. Lin Feng's sword mastery made him look like a triumphant sword god. Lin Feng had gained the advantage with that attack. He Mo silently looked at Lin Feng for an instant and immediately said, "You definitely have the qualifications to fight against me. You are strong enough, but this is only the beginning." While talking, He Mo lifted his hand into the air. A burning black flame appeared and danced around his hand. That flame was emitting an incredibly deadly chi. Boom! He Mo quickly stretched out both of his hands and the flame burst into 9 small flames. They were all black and were filled with the same sinister deadly chi. Deadly Black Lotus. The crowd was stupefied. He Mo surprisingly wanted to use the deadly Black Lotus. It seemed like he was taking this battle seriously. How skillful. It's a good thing I am also done warming up, said Lin Feng while sounding indifferent. His eyes turned pitch black. His eyes were completely cold and expressionless. His mind started processing everything that was happening around him. At that moment, Lin Feng could even distinctly feel the deadly chi that was contained within the 9 black flames. Lin Feng's sword diffused a dark and deadly chi. It was the same chi as that of the deadly Black Lotus. Even though the crowd was a distance from the fighting stage, they could still feel the deadly chi released by the two fighters. Their bodies felt fear, but the expression in the crowd's eyes revealed excitement. "I hope you don't disappoint me and at least put up a fight until you die. Otherwise, this battle would be uninteresting," said He Mo arrogantly. "Don't you think that you talk too much crap?" said Lin Feng coldly. He Mo kept calling in question Lin Feng's qualifications to fight against him, which gave the impression that he was monstrously strong. However, Lin Feng was actually forcing He Mo to become serious, even though he said otherwise. "Since you can't wait to die, I will help you achieve your aim," said He Mo coldly. He then shouted, "Black flames, Lotus transformation." When He Mo finished speaking, each of his flames transformed into a lotus flower which rushed Lin Feng at full speed. The deadly chi from the black flames had filled the entire atmosphere, surrounding Lin Feng's entire body. The entire atmosphere started to turn black. How scary, thought the people watching when they saw the deadly lotus flowers. These lotus flowers looked like they had come straight from hell. Lin Feng was still calmly holding his sword in the same position. The dark chi within his sword was getting more and more intense. At the moment when the lotus flames arrived in front of him, Lin Feng finally released his sword strike. Lonely sword. When Lin Feng attacked, the atmosphere filled with the chi of his lonely sword. The black lotus flames collided with Lin Feng's sword and upon impact they vanished. However, Lin Feng's sword continued to move towards He Mo. He Mo looked stupefied. Behind his body, an insanely violent black fire appeared. At the same time, an infinity of black lotus flames started orbiting around his body. His body was surrounded by black fire. The entire atmosphere was being burned by the fire. When Lin Feng's lonely sword was about to reach him, The multitude of black lotus flames turned into a gigantic lotus flower which rushed towards Lin Feng's sword and blocked his attack. My lotus flower is not only an offensive attack, it can also be used for protection. It is impossible for you to break through it, said He Mo arrogantly while looking at Lin Feng, and then added, I said it already. Today will be the day that you die. Chapter 177. Cherish a Fight. Lin Feng was staring at the huge black lotus, which looked like an illusion. His sword was stopped, but Lin Feng still looked calm. His black eyes looked extremely cold. His mouth started moving and he began to speak. Really? I can't break through? He said these words in a cold, indifferent tone, and when he finished talking, the chi from his lonely sword became even more intense. It looked like it could annihilate anything that stood in its path, as if there was nothing else in the world but Lin Feng's sword. Sword of Nirvana was a very quick skill to perform. It was a high-level Zon skill. It made attacks much sharper and more lethal. It was better than some of the skills at the low D level. Lin Feng slightly closed his eyes. His sword emitted a whistling noise as the chi rushed through the air. There was no surge of sharp sword force, but suddenly, Lin Feng's sword started unceasingly shaking. He Mo looked perplexed while looking at the sword upon his black lotus. Crack! A cracking noise spread through the atmosphere. On the gigantic black lotus, a small crack appeared which stupefied He Mo. Break, said Lin Feng. The chi from his sword of Nirvana attack became even thicker. In the blink of an eye, the black lotus started shattering into pieces. Lin Feng was pressing forward with indomitable will and was moving straight for He Mo, who was unable to block the attack. He Mo's heart was pounding. His facial expression was hideous. He had been incredibly arrogant a moment before, but at that moment, He Mo, seemed to be much weaker than Lin Feng. I cannot dodge that sword. He Mo was looking at that majestic sword as it approached him. He knew that he would be unable to dodge the attack. He raised his hands and what seemed to be an infinite quantity of cold black flames emerged from his palms. The small lotus flames combined into a single lotus and moved towards Lin Feng. Boom! The sword and the black lotus collided. The white resplendence of the sword and the blackness of the black lotus were mixing together within the atmosphere. The deadly chi rolled on the ground of the fighting stage. The fighting stage was completely covered with a terrifying deadly chi. He Mo and Lin Feng were still in their original locations, motionless. The crowd was astonished. Their hearts were pounding. Whose attack had been more powerful? Who was winning? Who was losing? A subtle sound spread in the air. Immediately after, the crowd saw that He Mo's clothes were pierced, and blood was flowing from his chest. They were in complete shock. As far as Lin Feng was concerned, his clothes were torn, and a multitude of black marks had appeared on his body. Both sides had been injured from that attack. He Mo is much stronger than Gong Lun and the others, just as I expected, thought Lin Feng. A moment before, He Mo knew that he could not avoid Lin Feng's lonely sword, so he didn't even try. He didn't panic either, which was a crucial battle skill. Instead, he attacked Lin Feng, so both sides had ended up being injured. He Mo remained motionless and silent for a moment while staring at Lin Feng. He then looked at his chest. I admit that I underestimated you. You definitely qualify to fight against me, and I will have to use all of my strength to beat you. He Mo was talking with a cold tone. The crowd was surprised. He Mo, a moment ago, had shown extreme strength. How terrifying would it be if he fought with all his strength? A light flashed through Lin Feng's eyes. He looked at He Mo and said coldly, "Can you stop talking crap, please? Since the beginning of the battle, you keep saying that I cannot compete with you. Where do these injuries on your body come from?" said Lin Feng coldly. He was disgusted by He Mo's words. Lin Feng now had the qualifications to fight against him, and he had to use all his strength to beat him? That had been the case since the beginning of the battle. He Mo was a disgusting and shameless person. You will understand what I mean, said He Mo indifferently. He raised his head and a black fire emerged. A multitude of small black lotus flames surrounded his body and slowly started dancing through the air. "Fusion!" shouted He Mo in a deep voice. These small black lotus flames started rushing into He Mo's skin and muscles. Suddenly, black lines appeared all over his body. The crowd was astonished by what they were witnessing. At that moment, it was as if the crowd had understood why he had called himself He Mo. He was named as a black evil spirit. A gigantic amount of deadly chi rushed from his body. The crowd could not believe their eyes. At that moment, He Mo's entire body looked like it was just a huge deadly black fire. That chi was terrifying. The scariest thing was that He Mo's chi seemed to be increasing. Boom! The hearts of the people in the crowd were pounding. 7th Ling Chi layer. Surprisingly, that chi had the strength of the 7th Ling Chi layer. It was a terrifying chi. It seemed like He Mo had been hiding his real strength. Swallowing these black flames gives him the strength of the 7th Ling Chi layer. How terrifying. Lin Feng will definitely die. The crowd was absolutely astonished. Being of the 6th Ling Chi layer was scary enough. They hadn't thought that He Mo would be so strong. Could Lin Feng still resist him? Lin Feng was equally surprised. What kind of trick was that? Being able to absorb the black flames to increase one's cultivation level? 7th Ling Chi layer, thought Lin Feng. Even though he knew that He Mo was close the 7th Ling Chi layer when they arranged the battle, his strength, now that he had reached the 7th Ling Chi layer, was actually terrifying. While looking at the fighting stage, Yu Chu smiled and said indifferently, "Lin Feng will definitely die." Then, someone amongst the members of the Ni clan seemed moved and said, surprisingly, his father really helped him to reach a high cultivation level. Even if his second son is dead, he can still be proud. Nobody believed that Lin Feng had a chance to win anymore. They were all sure that Lin Feng was going to die. He Mo looked at Lin Feng with despising eyes and slowly said, "You made me use my flame fusion skill, so you can be proud of yourself, but you are about to die." Lin Feng remained silent. He had an acute perception of everything that was happening around him, including He Mo's powerful increase in chi. He was still holding his sword calmly. His body moved again and he thrust his sword forward. His sword looked simple and ordinary. He Mo smiled. The black flames turned into a vortex and moved to block Lin Feng's sword. Such an ordinary sword strike should be easy to block, but at that moment, Lin Feng's sword started to shake. Lin Feng's sword pierced through He Mo's vortex and moved towards his chest. An incredibly huge amount of sharp deadly chi fell onto He Mo's body. No, He Mo's facial expression drastically changed. A monstrous chi emerged from his body. His hands were violently shaking. At that moment, an oppressive energy rushed towards Lin Feng's body. It looked like a black flame was dancing around Lin Feng. Vanishing shadow, die. Lin Feng looked serene while saying these few words. Immediately, his body vanished like a shadow. Even when seeing it from so close, it seemed like an illusion, but it felt extremely real. Lin Feng's sword continued moving forwards. The noise of Lin Feng's sword penetrating through He Mo's flesh filled the air. His sword cut through He Mo like a hot knife cutting through butter. Boom! The crowd was stunned. They couldn't believe their eyes. How was that possible? Really, how was that possible? At the moment when He Mo temporarily enhanced his power to have the strength of the 7th Ling Chi layer, they all thought that Lin Feng was going to be exterminated by He Mo's flames. They all thought that He Mo would easily kill Lin Feng. But Lin Feng remained calm throughout the entire battle. He had taught the crowd a lesson to not be so quick to judge. His sword had pierced straight through He Mo's chest. Yu Chu was stupefied. Lin Feng had surprisingly killed He Mo with his sword. Yan the leader of the Ni clan, stood up. The smile that he had on his face a moment before had completely disappeared. He was shocked. How could it turn out like this? The only sound that came from He Mo's mouth was something that sounded bestial. His long and messy hair was flowing in the wind. The black lines which covered his body were unceasingly moving while a surge of deadly chi emerged from him. "Die!" shouted He Mo. His fist rushed towards Lin Feng and crashed onto his body. Lin Feng's sword slipped from his grip and his body was pushed backwards. That punch left a black mark on Lin Feng's chest. His clothes were completely burned where the punch had landed. Blood was flowing from the corner of Lin Feng's mouth. He Mo was walking like a madman towards Lin Feng. When he arrived in front of Lin Feng, he punched him again and Lin Feng's body flew away. Blood filled the air. "Die!" He Mo was in a frenzy. He was completely insane. Surprisingly, Lin Feng had injured him with his sword. If he had bent down an inch, Lin Feng's sword would have penetrated directly into his heart. That was an extraordinary humiliation for him. He was walking very fast. At that moment, He Mo really looked like a demon. He wanted to brutally slaughter Lin Feng. But at that moment, an extremely cold and powerful force emerged. It was so freezing cold that it made He Mo stop. The crowd was also stupefied. They looked behind Lin Feng. Not far from him, there was a pure and holy silhouette. She was walking slowly towards Lin Feng. "It's her again." The crowd was astonished. It seemed like she was ready to attack. In the end, Lin Feng couldn't compete with He Mo, but nobody would make fun of Lin Feng. He Mo's strength was too incredible. Lin Feng had already achieved something great and had nearly killed He Mo. Lin Feng could be proud of himself. Everybody would remember that. But what stupefied the crowd is that Lin Feng, who was kneeling on the ground, raised his hand and said to the silhouette behind him, "Let me do it myself." Meng Qing looked at him with a strange expression. She wanted to shake her head. How was she supposed to watch Lin Feng die and not help him? At that moment, Lin Feng stood up. He looked like a proud and lonely man. He was firm and tenacious. "Men, cherish a fight. If I die today, I will die happy and proud," said Lin Feng calmly, which astonished the crowd. Cherish a fight? Lin Feng was fighting to win or die. He closed his eyes. His brain could analyze everything that was happening around him. It was as if everything was moving in slow motion. "Celestial spirit," Lin Feng called out in his heart. Lin Feng could sense that his perception of the world surrounding him grew even more. At that moment, his body seemed to be moving at an incredible speed compared to the rest of the world. He was also looking at the celestial book. He hadn't released the book spirit, but for some reason, he could still clearly see it. He started reading the first page slowly. On the first page, there was a sword in suspension. It was a divine deadly sword. Chapter 178, Sword Energy. That sword was in suspension inside the celestial book. It was a deadly black sword. Even though it was only a picture, when Lin Feng looked at that picture, his heart was racing. It gave a feeling of pride and serenity. That sword could annihilate everything, and its energy was majestic. It seemed like nobody could stop that sword, as if that sword could annihilate all of creation. Lin Feng had never thought that a picture could make his heart pound like it had. It seemed like that sword had been created for the sole purpose of destruction. If I could control the energy of that sword illusion, I could destroy anything in my path. I would need to fuse with that sword. I would become the sword and the sword would become me, thought Lin Feng. His thoughts were actually correct. Even though he was using a sword and most people thought that he was a sword master, Lin Feng was aware of the fact that he was far from being a master. Only if Lin Feng could reach an extremely high level of mastery would he then consider himself as a real sword master. Lin Feng took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. Lin Feng's thought was deeply profound. Everything was progressing within his mind. In the blink of an eye, he had understood a great deal of things. Lin Feng was closing his eyes. He was motionless. Other people thought that his injuries were too serious and that he was trying to recover. Everybody wanted to see how Lin Feng was going to cherish his fight against He Mo. Nobody doubted Lin Feng's determination because at that moment, he was still releasing an incredible amount of sharp sword force. What surprised the crowd even more is that Lin Feng's force was becoming more and more powerful. Apart from his will to fight, Lin Feng was still releasing deadly qi. How tough, how persistent. The crowd was astonished. Even in such conditions, Lin Feng was still determined to fight. But at that moment, on the viewing platform, Yu Chu and the leader of the Ni clan were astonished as well. They were both frowning. How could Lin Feng be so strong, and his strength seemed to be increasing? How could he reach such strength? Even his deadly qi was become stronger and stronger. He's controlling pure energy. The two of them suddenly thought of something. They were stupefied. Lin Feng was controlling energy. The second prince Duan Wu Ya as well as Long Ding were fixedly staring at Lin Feng and could sense that his strength was increasing. Everyone was looking at him while looking perplexed. Control. Lin Feng could control his energy. Yan will soon kill him, said the leader of the Ni clan at that moment, which everyone looked towards Lin Feng and He Mo. He Mo was moving towards Lin Feng again. Boom. A terrifying energy emerged from Lin Feng's body. It seemed like an infinite energy mixed with deadly qi. It seemed like Lin Feng had fused with this energy. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng released all the energy he had been controlling at the same time. Lin Feng was surrounded by a strong wind. Lin Feng's torn clothes were fluttering in the wind. He has become stronger. The crowd was calmly staring at Lin Feng. The qi that Lin Feng had just released was at the 6th Ling qi layer and not of the 5th any longer. Lin Feng, while controlling his energy, had broken through to the next Ling qi layer. He Mo's facial expression also slightly changed at that moment. His steps grew even more insane. When he arrived in front of Lin Feng, he threw a punch towards Lin Feng, which was surrounded by black flames. At the same time, Lin Feng opened his eyes. A bright and resplendent light suddenly blinded He Mo, which forced him to close his eyes. When his fist should have reached Lin Feng was already 10 meters away from him. When He Mo saw Lin Feng, he became anxious. He wasn't filled with the same determination as a moment before. When Lin Feng was still at the 5th Ling qi layer, there was a huge difference, but Lin Feng had broken through to the 6th Ling qi layer. How terrifying was that? You have already lost, said Lin Feng indifferently while looking at He Mo, which surprised him. You are no longer an opponent for me. You are not courageous and powerful anymore. A short time ago, I still admired your strength, but now you are just acting like a sore loser. You are not qualified to fight against me anymore, said Lin Feng. His energy had reached a pinnacle and could oppress anything in his path. He Mo's heart was racing in his chest. He was staring at Lin Feng. He didn't reply. Actually, what Lin Feng had said made his heart start to beat faster. When Lin Feng had managed to injure him, He Mo's confidence and arrogance had been destroyed. Yan he's killing your motivation. Don't let him fool you, shouted someone from the Ni clan on the viewing platform. He Mo was surprised. He looked at Lin Feng, who had a smile on the corner of his mouth. Regardless of the fact of whether I am destroying your motivation or not, you cannot deny that your heart is racing, and you do not doubt my words. That's enough. When Lin Feng finished talking, he started walking again. His sword energy and deadly qi were still growing stronger and stronger. Sword, said Lin Feng. At that moment, a sword illusion appeared in his hand. It was in suspension and it was pitch black. That was the sword from the picture. Sword energy. The crowd was astonished. How was that possible? Lin Feng could also use sword energy. Only cultivators of the Zon Qi layer could use pure energy to attack. That was one of the tools of the Zon Qi layer to kill their enemies. Even though Lin Feng had broken through to the 6th Ling qi layer, how could he use energy? Wrong. That's not pure energy control. It's a skill, or in other words, he's controlling the sword energy with his own will. Some people on the viewing platform who were extremely strong understood what was happening. They were also stupefied. Even though it wasn't pure energy, it was still very scary. Relying on his own control rather than on his spirit, Lin Feng had surprisingly been able to make a sword illusion appear. His sword illusion was even releasing deadly chi. If someday, Lin Feng was able to use real pure energy, then his strength would become monstrously terrifying. Then he would become a truly majestic figure. Lin Feng was also aware of his weaknesses. Relying on control, he had been able to use the sword illusion, which was in the celestial book, but as before, his strength and his control was not sufficient. A light flashed. Lin Feng unsheathed his soft sword, which was around his waist. His soft sword and the sword illusion fused together. Lin Feng's sword energy and the deadly chi invaded the entire atmosphere. "Hey Mo, this will end with one sword strike," said Lin Feng. His body flickered and he transformed into a shadow. Vanishing shadow skill. From the viewing platform, people couldn't see clearly what was happening. They could only see a sword which was emitting a terrifying energy. Hey Mo was intensely staring at the sword. That sword wasn't as resplendent or as simple as the sword which had injured him a moment before, but he knew the strength of the attack was immense. The energy within as well as the deadly chi around it was much stronger. That sword was the result of the combination of the vanishing shadow skill and controlling sword energy. When Hey Mo looked at the sword, he had the impression that it was a normal sword. However, when it was about to reach him, it started to glow and moved straight towards his heart. "Black Lotus," shouted Hey Mo extremely loudly while using his spirit. A gigantic black lotus appeared in front of him and blocked the way. However, when Lin Feng's sword arrived in front of the black lotus, it pierced directly through it. That sword was destined for Hey Mo. "This doesn't look good. Yan is in danger," said the head of the Ni clan when he saw Lin Feng's sword. He stood up and instantly rushed towards the fighting stage. A brutal and oppressive chi fell onto Lin Feng's body. Considering his strength, he understood how terrifying Lin Feng's sword attack was. "I didn't get involved. You cannot get involved either." While the head of the Ni clan was getting involved, Meng Qing released some freezing ice force which moved straight towards the head of the Ni clan. His facial expression drastically changed. Yan was in danger. "Boy, stop!" At that moment, while Lin Feng's sword was piercing through the black lotus, a loud voice resonated in his ears which made his heartbeat accelerate. Chapter 179. Death Ploy. Sound attack. Lin Feng's soul was shaking. Lin Feng was still holding his sword, but it seemed unable to move further. Besides, under the pressure of that potent sound attack, Lin Feng was unable to move his body for a brief moment. How could such a fusion of deadly energy be stopped so easily? Lin Feng's opponent Hey Mo could use a trick to gain the strength of the 7th chi layer. He was extremely powerful, but he could not stop that attack. Die. The black lines on Hey Mo's body started swirling in an insane way. His body released a terrifying deadly chi. Boom. Fluffy has exploded. The entire atmosphere vibrated. Lin Feng's sword penetrated into Hey Mo's body, but left only a faint trace of blood. Then Lin Feng's body was blown away by Hey Mo's brutal attack. The noise of Lin Feng's body falling onto the ground spread in the air. Blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. A deathly stillness filled the atmosphere. Had Lin Feng lost that battle after all? Wasn't Lin Feng stronger than Hey Mo? Of course, it wasn't the case. He was, at least, as strong as Hey Mo. Lin Feng's sword had nearly killed Hey Mo. If Yu Chu hadn't shouted like that, Hey Mo would have already been dead. Just like Lin Feng had pointed out, Hey Mo had lost his courage and was hesitant. He wasn't as determined as before. All of these things meant that Hey Mo had already lost before the battle even began. Hey Mo was much weaker than Lin Feng. However, Yu Chu got involved and had influenced that battle. What happened was unfair, but who would dare blame Yu Chu? If somebody dared offend him and the Yu clan, even if it was the Celestial Academy, he would destroy them, and even worse if it was a mere student of the Celestial Academy. Lin Feng, who was on the ground, raised his head and looked at Yu Chu, who was sat on the viewing platform. His eyes were filled with endless hatred. Truly shameless. Lin Feng was looking at Yu Chu with endless killing intent, but he knew that he was nothing in comparison with Yu Chu. If he dared to try and kill him, he would just bring about his own destruction. In that world, only those who were extremely strong were respected. Honor and integrity didn't count for anything. If someone was strong, then nobody would dare to contradict them. Meng Qing's body disappeared. She quickly moved next to Lin Feng and helped Lin Feng to stand up. Her beautiful face was filled with coldness. "How are you?" she asked. "I'm all right." Lin Feng wiped off the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked extremely proud. He was standing perfectly straight. What a proud young man, thought the crowd while looking at Lin Feng. Their hearts were filled with admiration for him. Lin Feng had surprised them throughout the whole battle. He Mo, one of the top 10 students of the Celestial Academy, had to use all his strength against Lin Feng, who was at the 5th Ling Qi layer. He even had to rely on the power of his Black Lotus to possess the strength of the 7th Ling Qi layer. Besides, at the moment when Meng Qing had wanted to help Lin Feng, he had refused and had said the outcome of the battle for him would be victory or death. Immediately, when the entire crowd thought that he had already lost the battle, Lin Feng had broken through to the 6th Ling Qi layer. Then, he released an attack which should have killed He Mo, but Yu Chu interrupted him. But thanks to his strength and determination, Lin Feng had gained everybody's esteem and admiration. Even in critical conditions, Lin Feng was still standing perfectly straight. He Mo was looking at Lin Feng. He looked perplexed. He didn't look arrogant and proud anymore. It was very clear to him that he had lost the battle. If Yu Chu hadn't been there a moment ago, Lin Feng's sword would have pierced through his heart and killed him. But Lin Feng wasn't looking at him. Instead, he was staring at Yu Chu as if He Mo wasn't there anymore. He Mo felt ridiculous. The atmosphere was filled with deathly silence. It was very oppressive for everybody. Everybody felt uncomfortable. At that moment, a faint laughter broke the silence. The second prince, while looking at the fighting stage, said, "You are both extremely strong. No matter who. You are both students of the Academy. If one of you died, it would be a great loss for the Celestial Academy and even for our country. Let's put an end to the battle now." Duan Wuya wanted to put an end to the battle but hadn't blamed Yu Chu for having intervened. It seemed that, no matter what the situation was, it was impossible to guess what the second prince really thought. Long Ding looked at Duan Wuya as if he was surprised. He then immediately looked at the Yu clan and the Ni clan. As if the situation had suddenly become clear, he nodded and said, "All right, that's the end of the battle." The Ni clan didn't say anything. It wasn't such a bad idea to stop at that point. After all, He Mo's victory wouldn't have been very honorable after all. If he had killed Lin Feng, people would have despised He Mo for his behavior. How could a battle to death finish before the end result? The disciples of the Celestial Academy usually aren't such cowards, said Yu Chu indifferently while smiling at Long Ding. The crowd was stupefied. He wanted Lin Feng to die. Besides, he had said on purpose that the disciples of the Celestial Academy weren't cowards. He wanted to make Long Ding angry. What an evil man. Lin Feng had offended him, so Yu Chu was going to do anything to try and create difficulties for Lin Feng. He wanted Lin Feng to die and didn't care about making His Highness the Crown Prince lose face because of it. Yu Chu was a member of the Yu clan. He was obviously arrogant. Long Ding was staring at Yu Chu. He wanted to say something, but didn't open his mouth. He only heard the sound of a cold and detached voice. Of course, the people of the Celestial Academy are not cowards, unlike the members of the Yu clan. The person who had said these words was obviously Lin Feng. He fixedly stared at Yu Chu. He sounded cold and indifferent, which gave everyone the impression that he was insane. He surprisingly still dared to insult Yu Chu. Could it be that he really wanted to die? They didn't think about the fact that Yu Chu already wanted Lin Feng's life. Even if Lin Feng provoked and offended him again, it didn't matter much anymore. Even dead people dare to say such crazy things. Yu Chu's pupils slightly shrank, revealing murderous intentions. He looked at Lin Feng and said, "When did my clan, the Yu clan, ever contain cowards? What gives you the right to talk this way? I don't have the right to talk that way." Lin Feng smiled coldly, walked forwards and said, "I want to ask you though, how strong is the Yu clan? And its young members, how strong are they?" The Yu clan frightens everyone in the Imperial City. It can easily annihilate the Celestial Academy, and you ask me how strong we are? Sneered Yu Chu before adding, "Besides, concerning the young generation, they are, of course, all giants amongst men. They are extremely strong. Giants amongst men? You're really shameless. I didn't know a bunch of scum could be considered as giants amongst men." While talking, Lin Feng was smiling coldly. Yu Chu was even more furious. Lin Feng ignored his facial expression and pointed at the two young men standing to his sides. He then said, "These two, they are older than me. I challenge them both to a battle to death. If the young disciples of the Yu clan are giants amongst men, then they will fight." The two young men on Yu Chu's sides were stupefied. They were staring fixedly at Lin Feng. He surprisingly dared uninterruptedly provoke them. These two young men were not as strong as Lin Feng. They had seen how Lin Feng had almost killed He Mo. How could they accept that challenge? Yu Chu hadn't thought that Lin Feng would make such a move either. A light flashed through his eyes, showing his uncertainty. Immediately after, he smiled and said, "You cannot challenge Yu clan members as you wish." Coward. Yu Chu hadn't even finished talking that Lin Feng interrupted him and said coldly, "If you don't dare, then you don't dare. There is no need to try and think about a way out or give excuses. You say that they are giants amongst men, but they are just scum, nothing more. Last time, I violently beat one of them at the prisoner arena. I don't know if he's still feeling a little weak from then. I also humiliated the other one. They are just trash. They are so scared that they cannot get their revenge alone. They had to go and find a senior to protect them. That kind of giant amongst men is just ridiculous to the extreme." The crowd was a bit surprised by Lin Feng's words. So that's what had started all of this. Originally, Lin Feng had humiliated the arrogant young people from the Yu clan. No wonder Yu Chu disliked Lin Feng so much. Lin Feng continued to talk. "But when I see you, it makes me think that the juniors and the seniors of the Yu clan are probably all the same. Therefore, I am not that surprised by your cowardliness and your shamelessness, and you still dare think that you are better than everyone else. In fact, I would like to ask you a question. Are all the members of the Yu clan so shameless?" Lin Feng's words stupefied the people in the crowd. Yu Chu was staring at Lin Feng as the killing intent on his face grew stronger. Such a shameless and impudent clan. Launching surprise attacks on other people and not even admitting it, and besides you are so satisfied and proud of yourself surprisingly. You dare sit on the viewing platform for people of high status. What a nerve! As if Lin Feng didn't understand how furious Yu Chu was, Lin Feng continued talking. Chapter 180. Pressure. Yu Chu was evilly looking at Lin Feng. He was burning with anger and his face was bright red. He was smiling, but killing intent was obvious. Shameless? Today, no matter what you say, I will kill you. The only reason is because I am stronger than you and my Yu clan is unstoppable. Yu Chu's voice couldn't sound more arrogant and aggressive than it did at this point. His reason was enough to kill Lin Feng. He was stronger than him and his clan was extremely strong as well. Without listening to anybody else's opinion, he could kill Lin Feng as he wished. Why are you not coming then? Why are you still standing up there? Lin Feng was looking at Yu Chu and his voice sounded indifferent. The crowd was, once again, stupefied. What? Could it be that he really wanted to die? Yu Chu narrowed his eyes while looking at Lin Feng and his face crumpled in anger. He looked like he had become completely furious. Yu Chu had clearly expressed his wish of killing Lin Feng. He wanted to make Lin Feng's blood flow to prove to everyone that his clan, the Yu clan, was too powerful to be insulted. You want to die, and so I will help you achieve your aim. When Yu Chu finished talking, Lin Feng started freezing from the cold energy that had started to surround his body. Under the pressure of that energy, he felt like he was frail and brittle. And Yu Chu seemed to be thinking about killing Lin Feng right there. Die. Two sounds spread through the air at the same time. The first one had obviously come from Yu Chu, who wanted to kill Lin Feng. However, Yu Chu hadn't attacked because that second sound had come from the second prince, Duan Wu Ya, who was next to him. Duan Wu Ya's seat made of stone was broken into pieces. Duan Wu Ya was standing up. He didn't look soft and gentle anymore. He looked fierce and heroic. Mr. Yu, what happened today is the business of Celestial Academy. Now stop with this foolishness. How does that sound? Said Duan Wu Ya while looking at Yu Chu. He sounded indifferent and calm, but his voice was filled with determination. Yu Chu had come to make the Yu clan gain prestige. Could he back down so easily? He was Yu Chu after all. He wanted to prove to everyone that the Yu clan was unstoppable. He wanted all these unimportant people to understand clearly how powerful the Yu clan was. Your Highness, you heard that boy. He humiliated my Yu clan. How could I, Yu Chu, let him off? If I let him off, my clan would endlessly lose face. Yu Chu was looking at Duan Wu Ya and sounded neither servile nor overbearing. The crowd was stupefied. What was going on? The situation was very strange. It seemed like there was now tension between Yu Chu and the second prince. First, Yu Chu wanted to kill Lin Feng, and then the second prince was preventing him from doing so. When everybody thought that Yu Chu wouldn't make the second prince lose face, he insisted that he wanted to kill Lin Feng. The crowd was puzzled by Yu Chu's actions. At that moment, Lin Feng looked at Yu Chu and the second prince arguing. He took a deep breath and tried to relax. Since Yu Chu had arrived, he had been trying to prove to everyone how powerful he was, to the extent that he had even contradicted and argued with Long Ding, the vice principal of the Celestial Academy. Even though Lin Feng hadn't been there at the start, after he arrived, Yu Chu was still humiliating the Celestial Academy to the extent that he had even threatened to destroy it. There seemed to be nothing taboo for Yu Chu. He felt like he could act any way he chose and say whatever he wanted. He had even dared to interrupt Lin Feng and He Mo's battle. It seemed like he was constantly trying to prove how powerful the Yu clan was. The rules did not matter to him. Why was Yu Chu acting that way? By making a display of his strength and not letting Lin Feng off, he would prove to everyone that the Yu clan was the most prestigious and majestic of all the clans and sects. Even Long Ding remained silent when Yu Chu threatened to annihilate the Celestial Academy, as if he couldn't bear the responsibility of getting involved. Everybody could see that the Long Ding and Duan Wu Ya's friendship was quite solid. However, even though the second prince and Yu Chu's relationship seemed to be of a polite nature, it was still difficult to understand their mysterious relationship. Lin Feng had already met Duan Wu Ya. Duan Wu Ya had acted as the referee for one of his battles. The result had been that one of the Yu clan members, who was a student at the Holy Courtyard of Shui Yu, had been humiliated and had lost his demonic fire lion. Lin Feng had guessed that Duan Wu Ya and the Yu clan didn't maintain good relations. It seemed very clear at this moment that there was not a good relationship between them. Duan Wu Ya wanted to protect Lin Feng, but Yu Chu really wanted to kill Lin Feng, to the extent that he didn't even care about making Duan Wu Ya lose face. Lin Feng didn't know exactly what Yu Chu's main motive was though. But Lin Feng had an even more audacious thought. He thought that the second prince, Duan Wu Ya, was actually the person at the origin of the Celestial Academy. He was the principal who never showed up. Everybody knew that an institute such as the Celestial Academy could only be established by a powerful person, and it probably even belonged to the Imperial clan. Besides, on that day, Duan Wuya had appeared at a critical moment for the academy, which made Lin Feng have the audacious thought that Duan Wuya was maybe the person who established the Celestial Academy. Yu Chu certainly knew about it, but still didn't care about threatening to destroy the Celestial Academy in front of Duan Wuya. Lin Feng had been gambling since the beginning on the fact that Duan Wuya had connections with the Celestial Academy. Lin Feng was putting pressure on Yu Chu, who wanted to kill him, but he was also putting pressure on Duan Wuya to act. He wanted to see if Duan Wuya was going to watch him die. He was gambling with his life at stake. He was betting on the fact that Duan Wuya and Yu Chu's relationship would worsen because of him and that they would not be able to maintain appearances. If Lin Feng guessed right, Duan Wuya was actually the creator and principal of the Celestial Academy. If Yu Chu killed Lin Feng, his goal to make the Yu clan prestigious would be accomplished. Lin Feng's conjectures were right so far as Duan Wuya was now confronting Yu Chu. If he had really understood Duan Wuya's background, then the latter wouldn't watch Lin Feng get killed. In fact, Duan Wuya was already getting involved. He had smashed his stone chair, but Yu Chu kept insisting. When Duan Wuya heard Yu Chu's words, he looked expressionless. Immediately after, he stopped talking, slowly turned around and moved down the stairs of the viewing platform. He then left, and while leaving, he said a proud and majestic sentence. Yu Chu, try and kill him, then see what happens. Try and kill him, then see what happens. That was a very simple sentence with a clear meaning. When Duan Wuya had finished talking, he was already leaving. The most frightening was that he had left right after he finished speaking. Yu Chu could try and kill Lin Feng, but what would happen to him? What a strong method, thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng was looking at Duan Wuya's silhouette as it vanished. He was very mysterious. All the problems were in Yu Chu's hands. He also had the choice. At that moment, Yu Chu's facial expression was rigid. If Duan Wuya had still been there, he could have justified himself, but now that Duan Wuya had left, he could not argue his side anymore. He could only choose whether he wanted to kill Lin Feng or not. After traveling for a short time, Duan Wuya arrived at a private mansion of his which was situated within the territory of the Celestial Academy. A silhouette suddenly appeared behind him. It was a black silhouette. Lin Feng had already seen that man in black clothes when he first arrived in the external part of the Imperial City at Jing Xin's restaurant. Nan Shan, what do you think? Asked Duan Wuya, who sounded completely calm. Your Highness, Yu Chu's move was a 3-in-1-1. He would gain prestige, damage the reputation of the Celestial Academy and make the Ni clan's opinion of Yu worsen. Replied Nan Shan calmly and indifferently. He was obviously talking about the opinion of the Ni clan after Duan Wuya acted as the referee. The Ni clan's esteem for Yu Chu had probably increased. Besides, it had made the Ni clan and Duan Wuya's relations worsen as well. That was an extremely powerful method. I know. I need your opinion. What do you think of Lin Feng? Said Duan Wuya indifferently. Nan Shan was surprised. The expression of uncertainty flashed in his eyes. He's an unparalleled genius, replied Nan Shan, sounding indifferent. He was lost in thought for a brief moment. After a while, his mouth moved again and he said, if, today, he confronted Yu Chu because he was furious, that's all right. But if he did everything after understanding your status, that's truly terrifying. Of course, it's the second reason. If he had done it out of anger, I would be really disappointed. Duan Wuya said, are you sure about what happened on that day? Yes, I am sure that it was the girl who was next to Lin Feng. Nodded Nan Shan. A cultivator of the Zhanqi layer. What a pity that we cannot let anyone follow Lin Feng any longer. When Duan Wuya finished talking, he started walking quickly and his silhouette vanished. End of chapters.